Paul Finebaum, Heather Dinich with us now. And Heather, the Canes continue to roll, not only roll, but dominate their opponents. Where's Miami in your rankings after this latest dub?
They're number one. They have a strong case for the total package. Look, there are certainly things that they can clean up. Carson back through an interception. They had 6 penalties, but the defense had 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and didn't allow Florida a 3rd down conversion. I get it. The Gators are underwhelming, underperforming, and unranked, but this was a tough, gritty rivalry game. That's something that the selection committee members pay attention to, the intangibles of that. And when you combine it with a win against Notre Dame, a win against a really good South Florida team, that gives them a case right now for the top team in the country.
And Heather, I think one reason why that makes so much sense is that watching the game, I thought Miami played fairly pedestrian, and they still simply put away their rival from up in the state. And I think that shows you what they're capable of doing down the road. I realize if you're looking from a tall building, beating Notre Dame doesn't mean as much. And of course, Florida is self-explanatory. But I think they'll get big wins later, and you have to look at what Mario Cristobal has done. And he promised a winner, and he very well has a national championship contender here.
All right, guys, Miami definitely a bright spot right now in the ACC. Meanwhile, for Clemson, it's pretty much lights out on their season. Paul, what is wrong with Dabo Swinney's program right now?
Well, first of all, I think Dabo Swinney ought to pipe down. Nobody wants to hear the woe is me routine from him. I mean, it's getting very old. Everyone knows what he's accomplished. Dabo, you don't need to remind us of that. We know. We watched the games. We saw your 2 national championships. So, Dabo, shut up, first of all, and try to get your team back in this season. Yes, there's only 8 games remaining, and your path to the playoff is about as narrow as me having a full head of hair by the 5 o'clock this afternoon. And the bottom line is this. There are so many problems, but the biggest thing to me, aside from Klubnik, is the defense. We expected them to be elite this year with edge rushers all over the place, and they have not performed. So that buck stops with Dabo Swinney.
I mean, I don't even know what to say after that. He just brought the hammer down hard. But I will say this, the buck does stop with Dabo, but listen, if there are going to be any changes after this season, it should be considered at the coordinator position with offensive coordinator Garrett Riley, because this team is underperforming. There's plenty of talent. I mean, Cade Klubnik had a good season last year. His top 3 receivers returned. To your point, the defense should be better. That's on Tom Allen. But here's the thing. I will remind people how good Clemson has been under Dabo Swinney. They played for the national title. They won the ACC last year as a 3-loss team. Dabo, I was on his press conference last night after the game, and for whatever reason, he has no explanation as to why they cannot put this together. You're right, it's on Dabo, but I also will point the blame elsewhere at the coordinators too.
Woo. Well, Paul, you're going to be back here in a few moments. We'll see if you tell anyone else to shut up. You also short out who the top team in the SEC is after that OU win. Great start, Heather and Paul. Thank you.
Oh, it is time for the segment that continues to grab America's hearts and minds. It is Paul in or Paul out with Paul Finebaum on SportsCenter AM.
Captivated.
LSU rolls. OU gets a big win, Paul. The statement is this: the Sooners are the biggest threat to LSU in the SEC. Are you Paul in or Paul out?
Randy, I'm Paul out on that. I thought it was a great win. I was out in Norman yesterday, and the defense was as good as I have seen this year. But let's get real. Certainly, Georgia has a win at Tennessee. Texas still to be determined. And what about Texas A&M with that win over Notre Dame? OU is really good. I don't think they're going to be there at the end, though, playing for the championship.
All right, Paul, I'm curious if we're living in the 1980s again, because the U looks like a true championship contender. Are you Paul in or Paul out on Miami being legit?
Tyler, I never left the 80s. I'm still wearing the same clothes. I am in on Miami. I mean, this is fantastic. And I mean, I was at an airport last night and I was getting U signals everywhere. This is for real. I don't think this is the turnover chain from about 6 or 7 years ago where it was a false alarm. This is a really good team, and when you can win against Florida and not play your A game, you're looking really good for the rest of the run. How about Miami and Florida State later for maybe the ACC championship?
Yeah, Miami and Florida State's coming up in just a couple of weeks. I want to get to the team that Miami beat last night, and those are the Florida Gators. The statement is Florida is the biggest bust of the college football season. Are you Paul in or Paul out?
They're a bust, okay, but I'm out on that because I don't think it is that big of a surprise. The biggest surprise in college football is Clemson. What else can we say? I mean, we really thought they were a national championship contender, Klubnik, a Heisman candidate, and they have just been an utter disgrace. And get ready for another Dabo Swinney rant this week, although he's running out of material.
I mean, Paul spicy this morning talking about Clemson and Dabo. Let's look ahead to the Saturday slate next week because it is a Jim Dandy. One of the matchups that we'll see is the Georgia versus Alabama matchup in the SEC. For Alabama, is this a playoff elimination game? Paul in or Paul out on that statement?
I'm in on that because they've already lost to Florida State. Now, that may look like a really good loss, but the problem is the calculus. It will be their second loss of the season, and Alabama still has Vanderbilt. Yes, you heard me, Vanderbilt in a week or two. They have Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn. I mean, it's just an endless stream of tough games. Alabama needs to win this game to stay alive.
All in on the segment with Mr. Finebaum. Paul out here on SportsCenter.
You want this, you got that. No way, watch them walk right past you. Run fast while you have the chance. Don't speak, let them look right at you.